For this demonstration, we're going to look at 4-58. It's a problem from last week. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this up and start a sketch in the front plane. This is what 458 looks like. Again, we're looking at those critical points. One right here in the middle obviously is our origin. 2, 3, 4, 5, and then also 6 and 7. We're using this demonstration to look at some of the additional commands here on our sketch toolbar. So we've got line and rectangle, which we've already used. We explored this slot command in another video, the one previous to this. Circle we know. Arc we don't use a whole lot. Polygon is one I'd like to show you. So I'm in a sketch currently, you can tell by looking at these, and so I'm just going to pull this out, and over here is where we control the number of sides. And yeah, it's great fun to run this up to 50 and watch it make a 50-sided polygon. Realistically, you keep it probably between 10 and less, 8 or less most times we draw with it. And we'll go all the way down into a 3-sided object or 4, but when we start getting into 5 and 6, that's where it's most beneficial for us. So I'm going to go ahead and say we want 6 sides. Notice when I hit the check mark, it's a blue sketch, and it does have some construction geometry in it. Okay, so the biggest deal with any one of these is getting them defined, and for that we add relation. We use points, or we can say we want one of these vertical, and that locks in the position. We haven't locked in size, but we've locked in the position. You could also delete that and say we want this point with a relationship to this point, and those three are going to be horizontal, and it'll spin for us. And very often we want a distance from one flat side to another. We could say we want that to be 2 inches, and we've locked that in. It's defined now. If we take that horizontal relationship away, excuse me, the size is locked, but it comes out of position. And so very easy to pick a line. So we want this horizontal, and we're right back to being defined again. I don't know. There it is. Once you select this, let's say we want to change this to a 5-sided object, you can right click and say edit polygon, and it will allow you to come back in and edit the number of sides. Notice the dimension it doesn't like anymore because things have changed, obviously. Even our horizontal and vertical construction has kind of gone wonky. So when we do stuff like that, it's better off to eliminate some things and then come back in and put those dimensions in later. So that's what polygon does. Essentially, that's how we define it. We don't need it for this drawing, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that. We don't use spline, not until much more advanced stuff. Ellipses come up once in a great while. They're not too difficult. They're just like a circle, but because it's a minimal use, I'm going to jump it. We've already used fillet. Chamfer is kind of similar. Chamfer is an angled corner. You can kind of see it in the icon. So if you had a rectangle and you wanted to chop a corner off, you can say I'm gonna do a chamfer that uses an angle and a distance. So I'll say 0.5, and then I'll put that 45 degrees on there, and I can choose the corner, and it chops those corners off. It's a neat command. It does, however, dual dimension every time you use it. And so depending on what your print has in it, you may have to get rid of those and then add the relationship. So these two are vertical, and then these two are equal. So now whatever happens to one, chamfer happens to the other. So I can say 0.25, and it also constrains the other chamfer. So kind of like fillet, just an angled corner. Again, we don't need it for this print, just working our way through the toolbar here. Text we're going to jump over. We've used trim and extend. We've looked at offset, convert. We only use that when we get into parts. So really we're going to look at sketch patterns and we're going to look at mirror today. There is a little pattern here. If you look at this print, we've got 1, 2. So that's our horizontal pattern, and there's a vertical pattern, 1, 2, 3, because this circle is the same size as these. And then we're going to use mirror to create this rectangle in one spot and define it, and then we're going to mirror it down to this area, just so you guys get to see a chance about how it's used. So I'm going to start off on the origin, put that diameter 3 circle in, and then I'm going to go ahead and draw a circle over here in the corner. Okay. Let's go ahead and dimension the size of that circle so it's constrained, and it has a diameter of 0.75. Notice I don't have any construction geometry. If I was going to choose one, I would probably choose a rectangle to locate those 4 corners. But because we're going to demonstrate pattern, I've chosen to eliminate that. I'm going to come over here to linear sketch pattern. It does start off at the very top with your x-axis and y-axis. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come all the way to the bottom. I'm going to choose the entity that I want to pattern, and I'm going to choose the circle. I'm going to make sure that there are multiples in the x and y. Okay, so x-axis, we've got 1, 2, so that's only at 2, and the y-axis 1, 2, 3, and so I've listed that as 3. The x-axis spacing is the distance between the two, so that's going to be 5, and I'm going to tell it to dimension this. I want a dimension driving that. It allows me to edit it later. I'm also going to say that in the y-axis, I want that dimensioned, and that should be 1.25. 1.25 down and 1.25 down. Now when you look over here, you can kind of see that it did work, but it went vertical instead of down this way. And so we'll come over here to our y-axis, and this is our reverse direction. We can flip that down. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead, and I like that. If I wanted to skip something, let's say we wanted to do this pattern, I can click in here, but I don't want this one. I can actually turn that off. Notice it says I'm going to skip that one, and it gives its 2, 2 for the coordinate of where it's going to skip it, or I can turn it back on. Okay, handy feature to have. We want all of them, so we're not going to skip anything, and we're going to hit the green check mark. Notice it created some construction lines for us, and it did define the pattern, but it did not constrain its location. Okay, and that's okay. Really what we want to do is we want to have that pattern established. If we want to constrain it, we can use some relationships. We could use another construction line. I'm going to do it a couple different ways just so you can see it. We could say we're going to draw this construction line in from one point to the other, and then add the relationship where that line and the origin use the midpoint. Okay. That doesn't constrain things all the way for us. We don't have any relationship to these being up and down, and so we would have to take this construction line and make it vertical. Okay. Now we don't have to use a construction line here. We could do a construction line from corner to corner again and make it midpoint. We could say we want to add a relationship between the center point and the center point and the center point and make them all horizontal. I'm not sure why that didn't work. Let's take a peek here. Oh, it doesn't constrain our location left to right, where the midpoint actually gives us a location. So while we've constrained it horizontally, we haven't given it a distance, and so we'd actually have to add this 2.5, which we're allowed to. We're allowed to come in here and say from this circle to this circle. Try that again. From this circle to this circle should be 2.5. And so now we've constrained it. Multiple ways to constrain things here. I'm going to go ahead and leave it at that. I'm not going to go into how to do the outside geometry. I mean, we've looked at that kind of thing a number of times. You know, drawing the outside circles, making them equal, draw the line in from here to here, and you can kind of see that this is how we've started to make the outside of this box. That's a radius of 1, and so you could put this on here, and it's a diameter of 2. We've started the outside box. That you guys should be able to start working on your own. What I do want to look at is the mirror command. So we did use a linear sketch pattern. We will go back into a circular one here in a minute, but I want to look at the mirror for a minute. In order for mirror to be effective, we have to consider where the object is that we're going to start with and where we want the new one to appear, which is down here. Somewhere between the two, at the halfway point, we need to construct a mirror line. It doesn't have to be construction if you happen to have sketch geometry that's there, but for this one, there is nothing in our sketch that goes across here except a center line. And so we're going to include the center line. I'm going to go ahead and draw my rectangle and trim it up. Let's see, it's 0.75 wide. And it's 0.38 tall. So we've got the box with the definitions on it. What we don't have is anything constraining it left to right. Okay. So I'm actually going to go ahead and trim this. And I'm going to use a construction line to give me the relationship that I want. I want to draw a line from the center of the circle to the middle of that notch. Make that for construction. If this was located where I wanted it, that line would be straight up and down, like that. And so that's what I'm going to tell it to do. Add a relationship to this line and make it vertical. And that constrains our location, and it does it without adding any more dimensions. Now, if we want to mirror that down to the lower position, we would say mirror. The entities to mirror are this one, and this one. You can see the 3 lines. We're going to copy. We're not moving this one to the bottom. We're just copying it. And we want to mirror it about this line. You can kind of see it gives you the full preview. If we chose a different line, it would mirror around that one. If we chose this, it would mirror over there. We're going to choose this one and hit the check mark, and you have a fully defined sketch that comes down because this one is defined. Whatever changes we make to this also happen on the bottom. They're connected. They have a symmetric relationship. That's what this icon is. Notice the orange point at the top matches the pink and orange square at the bottom down here. And that's our design intent, right? We want those to be equal all the time. So briefly, that's that's our mirror command. So the last thing I'd kind of like to show you is how to run the circular pattern. In order to do that, I'm going to kind of leave the idea of this for a minute. Get rid of our picture. I'm actually going to get rid of a lot of this. I'm going to go ahead and put circle from here to here. Kind of make sure that we're back attached to the circle. Make sure this is attached to the circle. I'm going to constrain this again by putting a diameter of 3 on it. And we can even put the same dimensions back in here. We can say this is going to be 0.75 and this will be 0.38. So let's say we wanted to make 1, 2, 3, 6 of these appear around the outside of here. We wanted them evenly spaced. So we would say, like the tooth up pattern of a gear or something like that. So we could say, let's do a circular sketch pattern. This is the point you want to spin around. So we're going to choose the middle of that circle. Now we do want equal spacing, a number of them around 360 degrees. How many? We're going to say 6. And the entities to pattern would be this one, and this one. You can kind of see that that's how many we get. And then you can edit this. It's live. So you can say, oh, I want 10 of these. And I'll show you how to edit it when we're done if we want even less than 6. Because this is defined, those are going to be defined. Although they're not looking real defined now. I wonder why that is. Because we didn't quite get the center of that. Notice where this is. So I'm going to add a relationship between this point and this point. I have too many points. Clear selections. This one and this one, and I'm going to make them coincident. There. Looked like we got the center of the circle, but we didn't. So, now that those are on there, we're out of our circular pattern. Notice this little relationship right here, patterned. If we, this comes up every time we use that circular pattern. I think if we right click, you can say edit circular pattern. And again, you can change the number of these. Hit your check mark, that'll just update. So it would be choosing any entity on here. And go to that line, I'm going to right click, edit circular pattern, and I'm going to say I want 3. And hit the check mark. And then I can come here and trim these up. I haven't changed anything about my current constrained geometry, and so it gives you an idea how the circular pattern works. I think that's probably enough video for now. It gets us through our sketch toolbar and also should help you do some of this week's assignments.